Are you guys ready for price increases in 2026? A highly reputable gaming industry analyst just predicted a Switch 2 price increase for 2026. Amazon CEO just issued a warning about tariffs finally hitting consumer prices, and Spotify just announced that they're going to, well, do what Spotify does best. And all of these announcements just happened in the last couple of days, and we're only a few weeks into 2026, folks. So is it just a coincidence that all of these price increase announcements are happening at the exact same time? Let me tell you a secret, I don't think so. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, a pricing wave may have already just begun. So today, let's dive in and figure out what is going on with Nintendo and the broader tech space. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Nintendo Switch 2 faces a price increase in 2026, research firm predicts. Tariffs, increased memory costs, and other economic conditions will force Nintendo's hand, it forecasts. Now, this is something that I sort of alluded to in previous videos, where market conditions are just going to force Nintendo's hand, even though they've had a weaker than expected holiday demand for the Switch 2 outside of Japan. And if you've spent any amount of time on YouTube watching Switch 2 news, I'm sure you've come across a YouTuber who has gone with this narrative, right? Price increases are coming for the Switch 2, but now this is actually a bit different, and something that we really should be taking a little bit more seriously, because we are now exiting the YouTuber rumor mill and we are entering into the world of highly respected gaming analysts whose entire job and career and business model is built off of tracking data and accurately predicting what the industry is going to do. And we're going to talk more about the specific firm that made this prediction and sort of what their reputation is. But let's take a look at the article here. Okay, in a report detailing its 10 predictions for 2026, video game business intelligence and consumer insight firm Niko Partners says it believes a global price hike for Switch 2 will take place at some point in 2026. Quote, the Nintendo Switch 2 is competitively priced compared to the PS5 and Xbox Series X after the latter consoles witnessed price hikes last year, the report reads. But we believe the Switch 2 is set to follow in Sony and Microsoft's footsteps with its own price hike driven by the impact from tariffs, increased memory costs, and broader macroeconomic conditions. Nintendo chose to maintain its $449 entry price last year despite the introduction of tariffs impacting production in China, Japan, and Vietnam. More recently, increased demand for AI data centers has pushed RAM and storage prices up. While we do anticipate Nintendo to increase the price of the Switch 2, they may opt to discontinue the $449 SKU and only sell a $499 or higher bundle SKU instead. I wonder what this $500 SKU is going to be, because Nintendo has already announced that they have stopped production of the Mario Kart World bundle, right? So I kind of feel like they couldn't have done that at a worse time. Like, frankly, I do think that if they don't want to just increase the raw price of the console, right, which is going to be devastating for the demand of the console, by the way, like, it is already a tough sell at $450 when you consider that there's just, outside of Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, there's just not great exclusives yet. You could say Hyrule Warriors, you could say Kirby Air Riders until you're red in the face, but the truth is that those are niche games. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it, and nobody's really buying a Switch 2 for those games, at least outside of Japan. I know Kirby Air Riders is popping off over there, but it really doesn't have broad mass appeal outside of Japan. So without a huge library of games that you need a Switch 2 to play, I just don't see why someone would spend $450. And now that they discontinued the Mario Kart World bundle, what's next? I think if they did a Donkey Kong Bonanza bundle, that would sell worse than the Mario Kart bundle, because Mario Kart has mass appeal. So unless there's some massively appealing game that is right around the corner, I'm not really sure what Nintendo's $500 SKU might be. But I do think that this being a sneaky way to sort of artificially inflate the price without actually just increasing the raw dollar sign is the way that they probably will go, right? Because again, I don't think that they can afford to just raise the price to 500 just willy-nilly. I don't see it, right? But if they have good margins on the software side, then that could be somewhere that they actually could squeeze out some value, right? Where they can raise the price to 500 and kind of mask it as, okay, you're getting this game with it, right? And then maybe they'll do something similar to like what they did with the original Switch, where they might bundle in a couple of months of Nintendo Online for that $500 price or something. I'm not really entirely sure. Now real quick, if you guys made it this far into the video, I just want to thank you. The support on the channel over the last couple of months has been insane. So to all of you who have been dropping a thumbs up down below and using the new hype feature, I really do appreciate it. And this channel has grown a ton and I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much. And if you made it this far, consider dropping a thumbs up down below. Let's move on with the article. Last week, Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa said the company is keeping a close eye on Switch 2's profit margin as the increase in memory prices and ongoing tariffs remain an ongoing issue in the industry. And this statement, we actually covered this in a previous video, but this actually kind of drives me crazy, right? Because I can understand that Nintendo is a multi-billion-dollar business, and of course they're going to keep an eye on profit margins, right? But when you're doing an interview as Nintendo's president, what you probably shouldn't say is that you're keeping an eye on the profit margin. What you should probably do is say we are keeping a close eye on the consumer demand. We're keeping a close eye on what the gamers want, right? I don't want to hear that you're keeping an eye on your profit margins. I, as the consumer, don't care about your profit margins. You should be coming out and saying, hey, we're committed to giving gamers the best value possible. We're committed to keeping our finger on the pulse of what these players actually want from Nintendo. What do they come to expect? What do they deserve as loyal players of our console? That's what you should be focusing on. That's what you should be coming out and saying, not, oh, don't worry guys, we're looking at the profit margins. No one cares about your profit margins. And like, look, I know this interview is relatively rare for him, and I also know that this was supposed to be like a business interview, right? So they're talking about the business side of things, but really the satisfaction of gamers and the customers of your product is something that you cannot divorce from the success of the Switch 2, right? So I feel like his instinct going right to profit margin is just like, I kind of missed the mark for me, at least, right? Like that's not what I wanted to hear. But anyway, the article goes on to say, we procure RAM from suppliers based on our medium to long-term business plans, but the current memory market is very volatile. We already covered this in a previous video, but let's actually take a look at what this industry analyst predicted for 2026, right? This is just VGC reporting on what they said. Let's actually just read what they said. Okay, this is the 10 major trends to watch in 2026 from Niko Partners. Okay, this is their prediction. Now, if you guys don't know who Niko Partners are, I didn't either until I did a little bit of research for this video, but they do kind of give a quick summary here. Niko Partners has provided high integrity data, insights, and analysis as local experts with global expertise for over 20 years. In 2026, Niko Partners continues to provide video game market analysis in 5 regions: mainland China, East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and MENA. 2025 was a year of recovery for the Asia and MENA video game market, with total player spending on game software and services reaching 89 billion, up 2.7% year over year compared to the 1.4% growth rate in the prior year. We're bullish that 2026's growth rate will be slightly higher than 25, although we do expect more stable growth through 2029 compared to some of the more explosive growth witnessed in recent years following pandemic related boosts. And then they go through their 10 predictions for 2026. Okay, let's run through these quickly and then we'll drill down more on Nintendo. Number 1, women will account for over 40% of players in Asia and MENA. Number 2, mobile games will see uneven growth between East and West. Number 3, the Switch 2 will see a global price hike. Number 4, more than 2,100 games will be granted ISBNs for release in China. That's huge. Number 5, government policies will emphasize child safety and addiction to video games. Number 6, Asian developers embrace generative AI despite mixed player reaction. I know people are going to hate to read this one, but unfortunately they are correct here. Number 7, M&A deals focus on smaller target firms. Number 8, multiple live service games will add UGC tools and revenue sharing. That's also huge, by the way. Number 9, Asia's game developers will move away from character gacha monetization. Okay, I don't know about that one. Number 10, evergreen games and established IP will increase barriers to entry for new titles. That's just a continuing trend, to be frank with you. I'm probably going to make a video very soon talking more about some of the most popular live service games and how that relates to Nintendo. I don't want to reveal too much there, but let's drill down a little bit on their Switch 2 prediction. Okay, and really the article we just read kind of goes over the entire thing, but their final note is, while we do anticipate Nintendo to increase the price of the Switch 2, they may opt to discontinue the 449 SKU and only sell 500 or higher bundles instead. All right, so then I was curious, right? Like, who is Niko Partners, and like, are they actually accurate? Are they respected with this stuff? Like, have they ever like actually predicted anything, or are they just throwing this stuff out here, right? Well, what I found interesting, back in 2023 they posted their predictions, right, for 2023, and what you'll see right here is in the last part of the intro they said our forecast accuracy rate and our market models was very strong, with 10% variance on average across the markets for 3 years out, and 16 of our 18 predictions made in January of 2022 were accurate. Okay, now again, I know we're going back a couple of years here, but I'm using this to illustrate the fact that in 2022 16 of their 18 predictions came true. They were right, they were on the money. And again, they've been around for over 20 years doing this kind of analysis, and back in May they actually won the best service provider at the MENA Game Industry Awards. Okay, so this is not just some college student writing their blog, right? Like, this isn't just some little goofball firm that has no idea what they're talking about. Like, these guys are coming out and saying like, yeah, really, there's just we're gonna see a price increase, right? Like that's what they're predicting. Now, they're not always accurate, right? They're not always 100% on the money, but it is worth noting that again, we are no longer in the YouTuber clickbait rumor mill portion of the internet. We're looking at businesses that make all of their money by being right, so they have the most to lose here. Okay, this isn't clickbait anymore. This isn't just goofy little articles. This is them saying like, yeah, we do this for a living, this is what we think is going to happen, and we'll have to wait and see, right? Because again, as I said earlier, and as I've said in previous videos, the demand for the Switch 2 seems to be cooling off a little bit, right? I mean, everybody knows this if you're paying attention. Outside of Japan, it's really not much buzz or hype going around with the Switch 2, right? So if the industry is going to force Nintendo's hand with a price increase, it could be coming at literally the worst possible time. And by the way, Nintendo's stock price did try to recover a little bit last week from its low, which I believe was its lowest price in the last year. Okay, and I think Nintendo probably wants that trajectory to continue. Now, let's be honest, I know a lot of people, and I've touched on this on the channel as well, right? The stock price of Nintendo is a very interesting data point to look at, especially in the context of Switch 2 comes out, price goes up and then tanks to a really low value. Of course, there's something going on there, but that also is not the complete picture, right? I mean, let's just be honest. If you've studied markets at all, you spend any amount of time watching stock prices, you know that the price of any given stock is part of an ecosystem. It's not necessarily just its own little blip. It's not in a vacuum. So if the broader market is down, then Nintendo's probably going to be down too, right? I mean, like, it is what it is. That being said though, Nintendo obviously wants to bring their stock price up, right? Like, what are we talking about? Every business owner, every publicly traded company wants their stock valuation to be as high as it can be realistically. And so do you really think that they're going to come out at some point this year and say, hey, profit margins for the Switch 2 are shrinking and we're just not going to do anything about it, right? Like, you really think investors are going to be happy about that? You really think that Nintendo's just going to come out and be like, yeah, well, profit margins shrunk tremendously and we're just gonna tank it, right? We're just gonna make less money. Yeah, shareholders are not gonna like that. So I don't know what they're gonna do. They really are between a rock and a hard place. But Nintendo's price increases are only just the beginning, folks, because this was actually posted over on Gizmodo. Amazon CEO says tariff price increases likely to hit your wallet this year. That's crazy, because I already feel like prices shot up in 2025, and you're telling me that the worst has yet to come. You're telling me that we're not even experiencing the effects or the full blunt force of tariffs yet. The article goes on to say tariffs are starting to creep into product prices as companies' efforts to absorb price increases run out. The worst of the consumer impact from Trump's tariffs is yet to come, according to Amazon CEO Andy Jassy. And by the way, I stay out of politics here on the channel as much as I can, right? I do not care who you voted for. I don't care about any of that stuff. And frankly, the people that really harp on that in the comment section below typically have a lot of typos, right? And I do think that there is a correlation there. You know, I'm not going to elaborate on that any further, but my point is, I don't care what your politics are, but economically speaking, it is an absolute fact that over 70% of tariffs, especially in the electronics, are passed on to the consumer, right? Like, that's not an opinion. You just look it up. So we're not talking about politics here. We're not talking about like your feelings or who you voted for. We're just talking about what's real, what actually happens, right? And this is like super well documented for the past, I'm not even kidding, like 100 years, right? Like, this is nothing new. You might have just learned about tariffs in 2025, but economists know about tariffs. Okay, the point is, tariffs cause prices to go up. Here's what the CEO of Amazon had to say: we did a lot of pre-buying in the early part of 2025 to enable us to try and keep prices as low as possible for customers, Jassy told CNBC on Tuesday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and quote, and that supply has run out in the fall. As a result, tariffs are starting to creep into some product prices, the Amazon chief said, as sellers decide between choosing to pass on the higher cost to consumers or absorbing them to drive demand. But the list of places that are willing to absorb that impact shrinks as prices soar. And that's the other thing too, right? A lot of people look at this and say, okay, well, you know, Amazon's worth billions and billions of dollars. They're just being greedy, right? Like, they could absorb more of these price prices. And it's like, yes, but actually no, right? Like actually in a perfect world, I would love that, right? Everyone would love that. It would be fantastic if businesses just did not make money on anything and just sold it to us at cost, right? Like, of course, I'm a consumer, I would love that, but that doesn't happen, right? On average, I know some products for some businesses are loss leaders. You know, historically, video game companies will sell their consoles at a very thin profit margin. Typically when new consoles would come out, like back in the day with the PS3 and the Xbox 360 and the PS4 and things like that, a lot of times they would be either razor thin margins or actually at a loss. And the idea is that you would make up the price through game, you know, software sales and subscriptions, like, you know, PlayStation Network, things like that. But again, in the broader sphere, on average, okay, at some point companies have to make money, right? Like what are we talking about? So we can sit here and say it's greedy, but it's like, okay, well, if they just don't make money, then they shut down. Like that is the actual from point A to point B. That's the logic chain that happens. It might not happen in a year, it might not happen in 5 years, but eventually you get a Toys R Us, okay? Eventually you get a Sears, eventually you get a Blockbuster. Like they have to make money. These businesses didn't just close down forever because they just got tired of operating. Like, no, they couldn't compete in the market, they didn't make enough money, and then they collapsed. And like, frankly, I think it's kind of funny that people like to still debate these types of things when we're referring to the literal Amazon CEO. Like people eating potato chips off their shirts, sitting on their couch or in bed are just like, yeah, I know more about tariffs than the literal Amazon CEO. It's like, okay, buddy, sure you do. Yeah, me too. The article goes on to say Amazon's consumers overall, I think, have fared well, but we'll have to see what happens in 2026. We are going to do everything we can to work with our selling partners to make prices as low as possible for consumers, but you don't have endless options. The tariffs have taken a toll on the global economy and possibly worsened an already tight American job market, as the automotive industry, gadget makers, and even libraries have spent the last year trying to contend with its repercussions. In a report published on Monday, Germany's Kiel Institute for the World Economy claimed that foreign exporters only absorbed about 4% of the tariffs, while 96% of the burden was passed on to American importers and consumers. That's crazy. Again, when you've got all the data pointing in the same direction, it's just like, I don't even know why people still argue with this, right? It's just like, I get that it's not what you want to hear, but at a certain point, it's like we have to live in reality, right? Like we can't live in a world of shoulds, right? Businesses should eat the cost. Okay, cool. I should have a salad today, but I probably won't. You know what I mean? Like we don't live in a world of shoulds. We live in reality. Amazon CEO goes on to say, ultimately, these findings mean that US companies will be confronted with shrinking margins and consumers with higher prices in the long run. Countries that export to the US will sell less and will be under pressure to find new export markets, the report said. And then the rest of the article goes on to talk about Trump, and honestly, I don't care about any of that stuff. All right, now before we move on to Spotify, let's just quickly recap here. We've got a trusted gaming industry analyst firm saying that price hikes are coming to the Switch 2 in 2026. We've got the Amazon CEO saying price hikes are coming to literally everything, probably. Now we've got Spotify confirming subscription price hikes for US users. Premium prices are increasing in the US, Estonia, and Latvia. This was just a couple of days ago. After months of speculation, Spotify has confirmed that it is raising its US subscription prices. This will come into effect when billing dates renew through February 2026 and coincides with increased prices for Estonian and Latvian subscribers. Spotify claims that this latest price hike will enable it to, quote, continue offering the best possible experience and benefit artists. Buddy, I don't know about that one. I am not buying it. Sorry, I'm not buying it. This is one of those things where it's like, okay, you are not selling a product, you are selling a service. And yes, there are components that go into providing that service that cost money, right? Like server costs and things like that, royalty payments, all that stuff. But I don't really believe you, Spotify. I think Spotify is just taking advantage of the current trend of everything going up in price, and they're saying, hey, we could probably cash in on that. You know what I mean? Especially because they are well known for not paying artists really what they should be, right? Like that is like the number one thing artists complain about when it comes to Spotify. It's that they're just not paid as well as they should be. I think that's the whole point of Tidal existing back in the day anyway. And really the best possible experience, like I'm gonna be honest, I've had Spotify since I was in college. I used to have the college plan, right? And it actually came with Hulu. So so back then it was like a crazy deal. It was like $6 and I got Spotify premium and I got Hulu, right? It was Hulu with ads, but I didn't care. Now I pay the full price, but I still have both. I'm actually kind of like grandfathered into that, which is pretty cool. But I'm gonna be real, the Spotify experience for me as a user has not really changed in the last I don't know, 8 years, 10 years. Like, it's been great the whole time. Like they've tried to do like AI DJs and like all this other stuff. They added Spotify Wrapped, like there's all this other, but like frankly a big portion of what they've added is not that interesting in terms of a user experience, right? They added some podcasts, which was cool. They have like, I think they have audiobooks now, which might be something I'm interested, but like really the best possible experience, like you haven't really changed your experience in a while. At least if you have, I haven't noticed it as a regular user in the last couple of years. So I don't know where this line is coming from, but I am sensing some BS. Okay. For context, a Spotify individual subscription costs $10 a month when the platform launched in the US in 2011. Then increased to $11 a month in 2023. Good for them. They waited a really long time to raise prices. That's crazy. And then they raised it again to $12 a month in July of 2024. However, from February 2026, a Spotify premium individual subscription will cost $13 a month. Okay, so if you're listening to this video and you live in the United States and you got Spotify, the price is going up. All right, it's going to be $13 a month. Newcomers will still be able to trial the music streaming service for 1 month for free before committing. The price increases also stretch to Spotify's other tiers. For example, a Spotify Duo account will now cost $19 a month, up from the current price of $17 a month. Likewise, a Spotify family plan will cost $22 a month instead of $20, and the company's student subscription is increasing to $7 a month from $6 a month. That's the one. I feel like I had this back in the day, $6 a month. It's a shame. It's a shame. So prices across the board, whether it's for products on Amazon or at Walmart, or it's for electronics like a PlayStation 5, Switch 2, or Xbox, or it's for services like Spotify or Netflix, all these prices seem to be going up. And frankly, I can only speak for me, but you guys can let me know in the comments. I feel like these products and services are either the same in terms of value or in fact lower in value. So we've talked about Nintendo and we've talked about Amazon, Spotify. Why stop there? Let's take a look at this article posted just a couple of days ago. How have prices changed in a year? NPR checked 114 items at Walmart. What brings Greg Reyes to this Walmart south of Savannah are the low prices. He and his wife keep a close eye on their limited budget. She's retired and he's disabled. Their grocery list is always the same, but the prices have been changing. Quote, I used to pay like $40 a year ago and now we're paying like $60, Reyes says. In his bags today are some chicken, turkey, and beef. Other things simply had to go. Quote, we don't buy ice cream no more because it's expensive, Reyes says. It's kind of sad, but we have to do it like that. The cost of living in the US rose 2.7% in December compared with a year before, according to Tuesday's federal data. So this is not, again, this is not like some woke liberal media trend that we're going off of with. Okay, this is the federal government's data. This is the United States federal government right now. That's their own data. That's a steady slowdown after a years-long stretch of intense inflation, but still painful. The past year also brought a global trade war as President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on nearly all imports, and the world continued to grapple with extreme weather from droughts to downpours. All of this is showing up in our shopping carts. All right, let's go on here. They say prices in NPR's basket rose 5% on average last year. Almost half the items on NPR's shopping list got more expensive in 2025, including shrimp, Oreo cookies, Coca-Cola, and Dove soap. Some price increases, notably on items made in China and Vietnam, appear to be tariff related. Other price hikes had to do with weather events affecting harvests of crops such as cacao and coffee beans. Yeah, coffee prices are crazy these days. How prices changed at a Georgia Walmart over the last year. All right, so let's take a look here. So this graph might be a little bit confusing at first glance, but in the very center is a 0% change in price. Okay, so things to the left of these gray bars are things that actually decreased in price, and things to the right of these gray bars are things that increased in price, and then right in the center are things that pretty much stayed the same. So off on the left here you could see that a dozen eggs dropped almost 30% year over year, right, which is actually not surprising. If you guys remember, at the beginning of last year there was a bird flu going around and egg prices were through the roof. I live in New York City. Egg prices here, a dozen, it was like $8 or $9 at certain points, right? It was actually crazy. And if you went to some of the smaller grocery stores 18 eggs would cost you like freaking $12 or $13. It was wild. So okay, egg prices dropping is that's kind of an outlier, right? I mean, it's the bird flu. What can you do about that, right? Like, it is what it is. But we see Kleenex tissues came down 11.2%. That's pretty cool. Here we've got Bounty paper towels, absolutely no change here. Here we see a 2 liter of Coke went up 7.6%. Here we see Head and Shoulders shampoo went up 17.5%. Here we see Walmart brand super colossal shrimp went up 31%. And then we have the Pen and Gear pocket paper folder up 46%. Now that's a folder, right? So I mean, when you're talking about 46%, it's like, okay, what did it go from $1 to $1.50, right? Like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm off on that one, but my point is, like, we're talking percentages here, so it could be a small amount of money in raw dollars. But the article goes on to say just under a quarter of the items on NPR's list got cheaper, including eggs, milk, and Cheerios, and many packaged foods stayed the same after years of price hikes. As affordability became Americans' top concern, big brands began to worry about shoppers switching to store label competitors or skipping some purchases altogether. To entice wary shoppers, NPR found Walmart offered more discounts in December than it had in previous year. Here we see Maxwell House went up 46%, a pound of ground beef went up 30%, Hershey chocolate bar went up 27%. We've got more shrinkflation, okay, which just makes all of our products shittier, which is awful. Tide laundry detergent shrank twice in 3 years while keeping the same price. Procter & Gamble says the original Tide formula improved, requiring less liquid per wash. Wow. Yeah, totally, that's what it is, because laundry detergent is a highly sophisticated chemical. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I think you guys sort of get the trend here. I think the price of the Switch 2 is just the beginning, right? That is just an entertainment product. That is an optional purchase. We are at the beginning of 2026, and we also could be at the beginning of a price wave where everything that you see could be going up in price even more than it already has, which is kind of crazy to think about, considering I feel like in the last couple of years prices really have shot up. So hold your wallets close, folks, because every company out there is going to be trying to stick their hand in it this year. Anyway, guys, if you made it to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton, and you might think you're subscribed to the channel because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.